My name is Lucia, and I am 32 years old. Sitting alone in my apartment, I froze as the notification lit up my phone. My sister Madison had posted wedding photos online. Photos of an elaborate $50,000 celebration I knew nothing about. I was never invited. When I confronted my mother, her lips curled into that familiar smirk. "You are single, Lucia. It would have been embarrassing." The next day, Madison showed me a picture. "Best day ever. You will never have one." I silently placed a photo on the table. Her smile froze when she saw what I had been hiding all along. If you are watching from somewhere, you have felt excluded, hit like and subscribe, while I share how I turned family rejection into my greatest triumph. Growing up in our upper middle class Boston suburb, I never quite felt like I belonged in my own family. Our house was spacious and comfortable, filled with expensive furniture and family portraits that somehow always featured Madison more prominently than me. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. But inside those walls, the emotional atmosphere was always strained, at least for me. Madison was born when I was 3, and from that moment, she became the center of our parents' Diana and Robert Hammond's universe. While many siblings experienced some degree of rivalry, what happened in our family went far beyond normal competition. Madison was the golden child showered with praise, attention, and privileges, while I constantly felt like an afterthought. I can still remember my 10th birthday. I had been hoping for a small party with my few close friends from school. Instead, my mother forgot to send invitations until the day before, resulting in only one friend showing up with a hastily wrapped present. We had store-bought cupcakes, and my father arrived home late, having gotten caught up at work. 3 months later, for Madison's 7th birthday, my parents transformed our backyard into a princess wonderland, complete with a hired entertainer, custom cake, and gift bags for the 20 children in attendance. My mother spent weeks planning every detail. "Madison is more sociable," my mother explained when I asked why my birthday had been so different. "She needs these things. You are more independent." Independent wasn't what I wanted to be at 10 years old. I wanted to be seen. Throughout elementary school, I poured myself into academics, bringing home perfect report cards and teacher commendations. My parents would nod distractedly, asking if I had helped Madison with her homework yet. Madison struggled with reading and math, but excelled socially, always surrounded by friends and invited to every party. "Your father was the same way," my mother would tell me when I showed her my academic achievements. "Too caught up in books to enjoy life." The irony was that my father, an investment banker, rarely engaged with either of us emotionally, though he occasionally showed small moments of connection with me. Sometimes he would silently slide a new book onto my bed or nod approvingly when I spoke about something I had learned. These tiny gestures became treasures. I clung to evidence that someone in my family saw me, even if just for moments. My mother, Diana, was a different story entirely. A former debutante from a wealthy Connecticut family, she had married my father with expectations of a glamorous social life. Instead, his career demanded long hours, leaving her to manage the household and 2 daughters largely alone. She channeled her frustrations into maintaining appearances and molding Madison into the socially successful daughter she wanted. For me, her criticisms were subtle but persistent. "Lucia, that outfit does you no favors. Lucia, no boy will look twice if you keep hunching over those books. Lucia, why cannot you make an effort like your sister?" By the time we reached our teenage years, the comparisons had intensified. Madison became head cheerleader, dated the football captain, and was crowned homecoming queen. I became editor of the school newspaper, won the state photography competition, and was accepted into the National Honor Society. Guess which achievements were celebrated in our house? "Nobody likes a know-it-all," my mother would say when I tried to share my accomplishments. Men are intimidated by overly intelligent women. Despite the lack of support, I discovered my passion for photography in high school. I saved my babysitting money and purchased a secondhand DSLR camera, teaching myself techniques through library books and online forums. I spent hours capturing images that told stories, developing my eye for composition and light. When my photo essay on elderly residents in our community won first place in a regional competition. Not even my father showed up to the awards ceremony. Madison had a cheerleading competition the same day. The few times Madison did not receive the attention she felt entitled to, her resentment toward me surfaced immediately. When I was named valedictorian, she refused to speak to me for weeks, and my mother cooled considerably, making comments about how some people peak in high school. Throughout those years, a distinct family dynamic solidified my mother, and Madison formed an alliance, presenting a united front against me. My father remained emotionally distant from all of us, though I sometimes caught him watching me with what looked like a mixture of recognition and regret. Despite the difficult family dynamics, I never stopped hoping that adult life would heal these wounds. I believed that if I just achieved enough, if I became successful enough, I would finally earn my parents' approval and Madison's respect. I held on to this belief like a lifeline as I prepared to leave for college, telling myself that distance might help us all appreciate each other more. Little did I know that the gap between us would only widen with time, and that the patterns established in our childhood would follow us into adulthood, culminating in a betrayal I could never have imagined. As my high school graduation approached, I received acceptance letters from several prestigious universities, including Columbia, with a partial scholarship for their journalism program. When I shared the news, my father nodded approvingly, and my mother said, "New York is so dangerous. Are you sure that is wise?" Madison rolled her eyes and said, "Of course you would move far away. Always have to be different." We packed for college with a mixture of excitement and sorrow, still hoping that this transition might somehow reset our family dynamics. The night before I left, I heard my parents discussing Madison's upcoming senior year and all the special things they planned to do to make it memorable. I fell asleep wondering if they had ever made such plans for me. My move to New York City for college marked the beginning of my independent life, but also the growing distance between me and my family. Columbia University offered me not just education, but escape, a chance to reinvent myself in a world where nobody knew me as Madison's sister or Diana and Robert's quiet daughter. Despite my scholarship covering tuition, I still needed money for housing, books, and living expenses. When I called home to discuss finances, my father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "We have put aside some money for your education, Lucia, but not as much as we would like. Madison's future needs have to be considered as well." I later discovered that "not as much as we would like" meant exactly $3,000 for my entire 4 years, while they were already setting aside funds for Madison's application to Parsons School of Design, including full tuition and a luxury apartment in Manhattan. Working 3 part-time jobs while maintaining my GPA became my reality. I served coffee at a campus cafe at dawn, worked in the library between classes, and waited tables at a restaurant on weekends. Sleep became a luxury, but so did freedom. For the first time, I answered to no one but myself. In my photography classes, professors recognized what my family never had. I had an eye for capturing authentic human moments. My journalism professors praised my writing, noting my ability to weave narratives that honored subjects' experiences. Slowly, I began rebuilding the self-worth that had been systematically dismantled throughout my childhood. During those college years, I returned home only for major holidays, each visit more painful than the last. Thanksgiving conversations centered around Madison's social life and college applications. Christmas gifts revealed the persistent imbalance, Madison receiving designer clothing and jewelry, while I unwrapped practical items like winter boots or gift cards for textbooks. "You have always been so sensible," my mother would say, as if frugality was my defining personality trait rather than their choice. It was during sophomore year that I met Jasmine in an advanced photography seminar. Tall, confident, with vibrant blue hair and an infectious laugh, she approached me after class to compliment a series I had presented. "Your work has this incredible empathy," she said. "You really see people." That simple observation that someone recognized what I had been seeking to do with my photography opened the door to the most important friendship of my life. Jasmine became my first experience of chosen family. Her apartment became a sanctuary where I was welcomed, valued, and understood without explanation. When I brought Jasmine home for spring break junior year, hoping to share this meaningful connection with my family, my mother pulled me aside after dinner. "Is she... is that why you have never brought boys home? Because if that is the case, Lucia, we need to discuss some things." "She is my friend, Mom," I replied, exhausted by her implication. "And whether I bring home men or women or no one at all should not matter to you." The look on her face suggested that it mattered very much indeed. Later that year, I did enter my first serious relationship with Thomas, a journalism major with kind eyes and a passion for investigative reporting. When my mother finally met him at my graduation, her assessment was immediate and cutting. "He seems nice enough, but not very ambitious, is he? And those glasses make him look so boyish. Will he ever be able to provide properly?" No mention of how happy I seemed or how Thomas had supported me through the grueling final year of college. No recognition that he had helped me secure my first internship at a respected online publication. Just an evaluation of his worth as a provider, as if that were the sole measure of his value. After graduation, I landed a position as a junior photojournalist for a digital magazine, documenting stories across the 5 boroughs. My first major photo essay on undocumented restaurant workers was picked up by several national publications. When I emailed the links to my parents, my father sent back a brief, "Congratulations," while my mother responded with news about Madison's fashion show at Parsons. What she failed to mention was that Madison had actually dropped out of fashion school after 3 semesters, finding the technical requirements too demanding. I only learned this through a cousin months later. Despite abandoning her education, my parents continued supporting Madison financially, setting her up in an apartment and funding her networking efforts to break into the fashion industry. The contrast could not have been clearer. While I worked 60-hour weeks to support myself and build my career from the ground up, Madison received unconditional financial support with no expectations of success. The real turning point came when I held my first photography exhibition at a small but respected gallery in Brooklyn. The exhibition featured portraits of immigrants sharing stories of their first year in America. I sent formal invitations to my parents and Madison 6 weeks in advance. The opening night arrived, friends came, colleagues came. Even some subjects from my photographs attended. My exhibition was reviewed favorably in local arts publications. Thomas stood proudly by my side, championing my work to everyone who entered. My family did not come. No call, no text, not even an excuse. That night something broke inside me, but something else was born, a determination to build a life so rich with meaning and authentic connection that their absence would eventually stop feeling like a wound. The next morning, I began therapy with a counselor specializing in family trauma. Dr. Sarah Wilson became another pillar in my chosen family, helping me understand that my parents' inability to see me was their limitation, not my failing. "You have been trying to earn love that should have been freely given," she said during one session. "What would happen if you stopped trying to win their approval?" The question terrified and liberated me simultaneously. As my reputation grew, I received assignments that took me beyond New York, documenting stories across the country and eventually internationally. Each new perspective gave me greater clarity on my family dynamics. I saw mothers in impoverished circumstances who somehow made each child feel treasured. I photographed families separated by war who moved heaven and earth to reunite. These experiences helped me understand that what I had experienced wasn't normal or acceptable, no matter how common such favoritism might be in some families. When a prestigious newspaper in Seattle offered me a staff position with creative control over human interest stories, I accepted without hesitation. The physical distance from my East Coast family felt symbolic of my emotional journey away from their influence. During this period, contact with my family dwindled to occasional text messages and obligatory birthday calls. I still sent Christmas gifts that received minimal acknowledgement. I still asked about their lives and received vague responses. But I stopped expecting more. I stopped making myself vulnerable to their rejection. Instead, I poured myself into building a life of purpose. I established myself professionally, cultivated deep friendships, explored relationships that taught me what healthy love felt like after Thomas and I amicably parted ways. I traveled extensively for work, developing a passion project documenting what I called chosen families around the world, groups of people who had found and claimed each other, despite having no blood connection. Through a distant relative who still kept in touch, I occasionally received updates about my family. Madison had cycled through several fashion industry-adjacent jobs without finding her footing. My parents had renovated their house. My father had received a promotion. Normal, mundane family news that should not have felt like dispatches from a foreign country, but somehow did. What I did not know was that while I was building my new life, events were unfolding back in Boston that would force a confrontation with everything I thought I had moved beyond. I was reviewing edits for my latest photo series when the notification appeared on my phone. A mutual childhood friend had tagged Madison in a wedding album on social media. Curious, I tapped the notification, not prepared for what appeared on my screen. There was my sister in an elaborate white gown, posing outside our childhood church. My parents stood beside her, beaming my father in a tuxedo. I had never seen my mother in an expensive designer dress. Extended family members I had not seen in years filled the frame, along with childhood neighbors and family friends. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the hardwood floor of my Seattle apartment, hot liquid splashing my bare feet. I barely noticed the pain. I scrolled through hundreds of professional photographs documenting an extravagant celebration I knew nothing about. A ceremony with 4 bridesmaids in matching gowns, a reception at the Ritz-Carlton Boston with ice sculptures and a 7-tiered cake, my cousin Emily, whom I had been close with as a child, giving a toast, my elderly grandmother, who I had been told was too frail to travel dancing with Madison's new husband, a wedding I had not been invited to, had not even been told was happening. The final blow came when I found an interview with my mother in the local society page. Diana Hammond radiated joy as she described the perfect family celebration. "We are so blessed to have everyone we love together for Madison's special day," she told our reporter. Everyone they loved, except me. I sank to the floor amid the broken ceramic and cooling coffee, my phone clutched in my trembling hand, breath coming in short gasps. The physical pain in my chest was so intense, I wondered if I was having a heart attack. When I could move again, I called Jasmine, who had relocated to Portland after college, but remained my closest confidant. "They had a $50,000 wedding and did not tell me it was happening," I said, voice hollow with shock. "My entire family was there. Everyone except me." "Oh, Lucia." Jasmine's voice cracked with shared pain. "I am so, so sorry." "What is wrong with me?" I whispered, giving voice to the question that had haunted me since childhood. Why have they never loved me the way they love her? "Nothing is wrong with you," Jasmine said firmly. "This is not a reflection of your worth. This is about their limitations, their failings as parents." "I need to know why," I said after a long silence. "I need to hear them say it, even if the truth destroys whatever is left between us." "Then go," Jasmine replied. "Get your closure. But remember who you are now, not who they made you believe you were." I tried calling my mother that evening, but the call went to voicemail. I left a message asking her to call me back regarding Madison's wedding. No response came. I texted my father directly. "I saw Madison got married. Why wasn't I told, let alone invited?" His response came hours later. "There was some confusion with invitations. Your mother handled the guest list. I'm sorry you felt excluded." Felt excluded. As if my exclusion was a subjective experience, rather than their deliberate choice. The careful passive voice. The abdication of responsibility. It was so familiar, it made me nauseous. The next morning, an assignment I had been preparing for in Argentina was unexpectedly canceled due to political unrest in the region. My editor gave me the week off in compensation. It felt like the universe conspiring to send me back to Boston. I booked a flight leaving that afternoon, not allowing myself time to reconsider. I packed a small suitcase, including the portfolio of my most significant work from the past 5 years. Work my family had never seen, had never asked about. But that had changed my life and the lives of others. The flight from Seattle to Boston gave me 5 hours to rehearse what I would say to prepare myself for the confrontation to come. But no mental preparation could have readied me for what actually happened. I rented a car at Logan Airport and drove directly to my parents' house, not bothering to check into a hotel first. It was mid-afternoon when I parked in the driveway of the colonial-style home where I had grown up. The house looked exactly the same, yet somehow smaller than in my memory. Through the large front window, I could see my mother and Madison sitting in the living room, paging through what appeared to be wedding albums. The sight stopped me cold. For a moment, I considered driving away, protecting myself from whatever painful interaction awaited. Instead, I grabbed my portfolio from the passenger seat and approached the front door. My knock was answered by my mother, whose expression shifted from polite expectation to shock. "Lucia, what are you doing here?" She did not open the door wider to invite me in. "I came to ask why I wasn't told about Madison's wedding," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I think I deserve an explanation." My mother's lips tightened, but she stepped aside, allowing me to enter the house that no longer felt like home. Madison looked up from the couch, her expression flickering between surprise and something that looked almost like guilt before settling into defensive hostility. "Well, this is unexpected," Madison said, closing the wedding album as if to protect it from my gaze. "I will make tea," my mother announced, disappearing into the kitchen, her standard response to uncomfortable situations. Left alone with Madison, I struggled to find words. My sister had always been conventionally beautiful, but now she looked polished to perfection, clearly benefiting from expensive skin treatments and professional styling. Her engagement and wedding rings glittered ostentatiously as she nervously twisted them. "Congratulations on your marriage," I finally said. "He looks nice in the photos." "James, right?" "Jeremy," she corrected. "We met at Fashion Week 2 years ago. He is in investment banking like Dad." The silence stretched between us until our mother returned with a tray, setting it on the coffee table without meeting my eyes. My father was conspicuously absent, though his car had been in the driveway. "Your father is resting upstairs," my mother said, answering my unasked question. "He has been working very hard lately. Too hard to come downstairs and face his excluded daughter, apparently. I saw the wedding photos online," I said, accepting the teacup my mother handed me. "It looked beautiful, expensive." "Jeremy's parents contributed," my mother said quickly, as if I had accused them of something. "But yes, we wanted Madison to have the wedding she deserved." The word deserved hung in the air between us. "And I did not deserve to know it was happening," I asked, setting down my untouched tea. "I did not deserve an invitation to my only sister's wedding." "It was a complicated situation," my mother began, but Madison interrupted. "It was my special day," she said defensively. "I got to decide who was there." "And you decided your own sister should not be there," I pressed, looking directly at Madison, whose gaze faltered. My mother straightened in her chair, her face hardening into the expression I knew preceded her most cutting remarks. "To be perfectly frank, Lucia, you are single. It would have been embarrassing to have you there alone. The wedding party was balanced everyone with partners. You would have stood out, and not in a good way. It would have drawn attention away from Madison's perfect day." The casual cruelty stole my breath. All those years of therapy, all the personal growth and professional success, and still my mother could reduce me to nothing with a few carefully chosen words. "I could have brought someone," I said weakly, hating how small my voice sounded. "Who?" Madison asked with a slight smirk. "That Japanese girl with the blue hair, one of your interview subjects." "You have never had a real relationship, Lucia. You have always been too focused on your career." "That is not fair," I protested. "You don't know anything about my personal life because you have never asked. None of you have ever asked." "We hear so little from you," my mother countered. "How are we supposed to know what is happening in your life when you ran away to the opposite coast?" The gaslighting was so blatant it almost made me laugh. Years of unanswered messages, ignored accomplishments, and minimal effort on their part reframed as my failure to communicate. As I struggled to respond, the sound of footsteps on the stairs announced my father's arrival. He paused in the doorway, looking older than the last time I had seen him. For a moment, something like shame crossed his features. "Lucia," he said quietly, "I didn't know you were coming." "Clearly," I replied. "There seems to be a lot you don't tell me." An uncomfortable silence filled the room until Madison reached for her phone. "Actually, I wanted to show you something anyway, since you are here," she said, scrolling through her photos. She extended the phone toward me with a photo of her in her wedding dress, radiant beside her new husband. "Best day ever," she declared with a triumphant smile. Then in a lower voice meant only for me, she added, "You will never have one, you know. Not the way you live." Something broke inside me then, but not in the way they might have expected. Instead of tears or anger, I felt a sudden crystalline clarity. I reached for my portfolio, unzipping it slowly. "Actually, Madison," I said calmly, "there is something I would like to show you too." I withdrew a single photograph and placed it on the coffee table between us. It was a stunning image capturing two hands with matching platinum bands against the backdrop of a Santorini sunset. One hand was clearly mine, recognizable by a small childhood scar on the thumb. The other was more slender, with elegant fingers and a simple manicure. Madison's smile froze as she stared at the photograph. "What is this?" my mother demanded, leaning forward to see. "This is from my commitment ceremony with Emma last year," I said quietly. "She is an architect I met while on assignment in Chicago 3 years ago. We made our promises to each other privately the way we wanted, surrounded by people who actually support us. It was the most beautiful day of my life." The silence in the room was absolute. "You are married to a woman," my mother finally whispered, her face drained of color. "We had a private ceremony," I clarified. "Not legally married yet, though we plan to be. And yes, to a woman. Emma is the love of my life, something I never told you because I knew you would not accept it." Madison continued staring at the photograph, her expression unreadable. My father had moved closer, looking at the image over her shoulder. To my surprise, a small sad smile touched his lips briefly. "Why did you not tell us?" My mother asked, her voice tight with what sounded like anger, though I recognized it as her response to feeling out of control. "Why would I?" I countered. "When have you ever shown interest in my happiness? When have you ever celebrated anything important to me? That is not fair," my mother began, but I cut her off. "No, what is not fair is discovering my sister's wedding through social media. What is not fair is being told I would have been an embarrassment at a family event. What is not fair is spending my entire life trying to earn love that should have been freely given." Madison looked up from the photograph, her perfect facade cracking slightly. "You always had it so easy," she said, her voice holding a vulnerability I rarely heard. "You were smart without trying. You knew exactly what you wanted. You just walked away and built this amazing life while I was stuck here trying to be what they wanted." The admission stunned me. Was it possible that Madison the Golden Child had felt trapped by the very favoritism that had wounded me? "Nothing about my life has been easy," I said quietly. "I worked 3 jobs through college. I built my career while you were getting your rent paid. I created a family of friends who actually see me because my blood family never did." My mother stood abruptly, her teacup clattering in its saucer. "I will not sit here and be accused of being a bad mother," she declared. "Everything I have ever done has been for this family." "For parts of this family," I corrected. "Never for all of it." She stormed out of the room without another word, leaving me with Madison and our father, who had remained largely silent throughout the confrontation. "I am sorry, Lucia," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "I have not been the father you deserved." The simple acknowledgement so long withheld brought tears to my eyes for the first time since I had arrived. "Why, Dad?" I asked. "Why did you let it happen? Why did you never stand up for me?" He looked down at his hand's wedding ring glinting in the afternoon light. "I saw too much of myself in you," he said quietly. "The same intensity, the same drive. I watched your mother and sister form their bond and told myself you were strong enough to withstand being on the outside. I told myself you were independent, that you did not need the same kind of support. I was wrong, and I was weak." Madison was watching our father with an expression I could not quite read, somewhere between surprise and dawning understanding. I gathered my portfolio, returning the photograph of Emma and me to its place. "I should go," I said, suddenly exhausted by the emotional toll of the confrontation. Neither my father nor Madison tried to stop me as I walked to the door. As I reached for the handle, Madison called out, "Lucia, is she good to you? Your Emma." I turned back, surprised by the question and the genuine curiosity behind it. "Yes," I said simply. "She loves me exactly as I am." I left with my head high, returning to my rental car with the strange sensation of having both lost something and been liberated from it simultaneously. As I drove to the hotel I had booked in downtown Boston, I called Emma, who answered immediately despite the time difference in Seattle. "How did it go?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "About as well as could be expected," I replied, then proceeded to tell her everything: the accusation of embarrassment, the revelation of our relationship, Madison's unexpected vulnerability, my father's too little too late apology. "You did the right thing," Emma said when I had finished. "Not for them, but for yourself. You deserve the truth, and you deserve to be seen." As I checked into my hotel room, I realized that for the first time in my life, I had stood in my family's presence without seeking their approval. I had spoken my truth without apology. Whatever came next, I had broken free of the need to be loved by people who did not know how to love me properly. It felt like the first real step in my journey home, not to a physical place, but to myself. The 3 months following my confrontation with my family passed in a blur of creative focus. Upon returning to Seattle, I threw myself into preparations for the gallery exhibition that would become the most significant milestone of my career so far. The exhibition, titled Chosen Family, featured portraits and narratives from my years of documenting unconventional bonds around the world: same-sex couples who had created havens for LGBTQ+ youth, elderly neighbors who had become each other's caregivers, immigrants who formed micro-communities in strange lands, people who had found and claimed each other when blood ties had failed them or never existed. It was the most personal work I had ever assembled, though few would recognize how deeply it reflected my own journey. Emma proved an unwavering partner through the intensive preparation period, an accomplished architect with her own demanding career. She still found time to review my selections, offer insights on exhibition layout, and hold me when the emotional weight of the project overwhelmed me. "This work matters," she would tell me when doubts crept in. "You are giving voice to a universal human need that too often goes unacknowledged." Jasmine flew in from Portland twice to help coordinate elements of the opening, leveraging her connections in the art world to ensure the right people would attend. My editor at the newspaper granted me a temporary leave to focus on the exhibition, recognizing its potential impact. A week before the opening, I received an unexpected email from my father. "Dear Lucia," it read, "I have been thinking constantly about your visit and the truths you shared with us. I would like to attend your exhibition if you would allow it. I understand if the answer is no. Either way, I want you to know I am proud of the woman and artist you have become, even if I have done nothing to deserve claiming any credit for either. Love, Dad." The message sent me into an emotional tailspin. Emma found me staring at my laptop, tears streaming down my face. "What do you want to do?" she asked after reading the email. "Not what you think you should do, but what you want." I considered the question carefully. "I want him to see my work," I admitted. "I want him to see me, the real me, not the daughter he failed. But I am afraid of being hurt again." "Then set your boundary," Emma advised. "Invite him, but on your terms. You are not that vulnerable girl anymore, Lucia. You are a woman who knows her worth." I replied to my father's email with a simple confirmation that he would be welcome at the opening, along with a hotel recommendation, since I would not be able to host him personally. His response came quickly, confirming his plans to attend alone. No mention was made of my mother or Madison. The night of the opening arrived with the nervous energy that accompanies all significant milestones. The gallery looked stunning, transformed by my vision and the curator's expertise. My photographs hung on white walls under perfect lighting, accompanied by narrative text that honored each subject's story. Emma, striking in a tailored black suit that complemented my midnight blue dress, stayed close as early visitors began to arrive. Jasmine managed the guest list at the entrance, periodically catching my eye with encouraging smiles. Colleagues from the newspaper, fellow photographers, and art world luminaries filled the space with appreciative murmurs. I was speaking with a critic from a national arts publication when I saw my father enter. He looked smaller, somehow less imposing than the man who had loomed so large in my childhood. He wore a conservative suit and carried a small gift bag, scanning the crowd until our eyes met. I excused myself from the conversation and made my way toward him, aware of Emma watching protectively from across the room. "You came," I said, stopping a few feet from him. "I said I would," he replied, his voice soft. "Thank you for allowing me to be here." An awkward silence followed, filled with decades of unspoken words. "Would you like to see the exhibition?" I finally offered. "I could walk you through it." He nodded, and we began moving through the gallery. I explained each series, the stories behind the images, the technical challenges overcome. He listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that surprised me with their insight. When we reached the final wall, featuring a series on elderly couples who had found love late in life after previous relationships had ended, he stopped before an image of two white-haired women sitting on a porch swing, hands clasped between them. "They found each other at 70, I explained, "after both lost their husbands. They said they never expected to find love again, let alone with another woman, but life surprised them." "Life has a way of doing that," my father said quietly, "surprising us with truths we never anticipated." He turned to face me fully. "Is there somewhere we could talk privately for a few minutes?" I led him to a small office at the back of the gallery, closing the door against the sounds of the successful opening in progress. "Your work is extraordinary, Lucia," he said once we were alone. "The empathy in your images, the dignity you give your subjects. You have a rare gift." "Thank you," I replied, unsure where this conversation was heading. "I need to tell you something," he continued, looking down at his hands. "Madison's wedding created significant tension in our marriage. Your mother insisted on excluding you, and I failed to stand firm against it. I told myself it was Madison's day, her choice, but the truth is I was cowardly. Again." He looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "When you came to the house afterward, when you showed us that beautiful photograph of you and Emma, I realized how much I had missed of your life, how many important moments I had sacrificed on the altar of keeping peace with your mother." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my throat tight with emotion. "Because I want you to know that my presence here tonight is a choice I am making despite your mother's explicit disapproval. She refused to come, refused to even discuss it. For possibly the first time in our marriage, I chose to do what I believe is right, over what would keep her happy. The admission stunned me. My father, who had always chosen the path of least resistance, had finally taken a stand on my behalf. "I do not expect this one action to make up for years of failure," he continued. "I do not expect your forgiveness. But I hope it might be the beginning of a new relationship between us, if you would be willing." I studied his face, the familiar features now marked with age and regret. "I cannot promise anything," I said honestly. "But I appreciate that you came, and I appreciate your honesty." He nodded, accepting my cautious response. "There is one more thing," he said, offering me the small gift bag he had been carrying. Inside, I found a velvet box containing a pair of vintage pearl earrings I recognized immediately. "Grandma Hammond's earrings," I whispered. "I always admired these when I was little." "They should have gone to you when she passed," my father said. "They were meant for you. Another failure I am trying to correct, too late though it may be." We returned to the gallery, the weight of our conversation settling between us like a bridge under construction, fragile, but potentially significant. The remainder of the evening unfolded in a haze of introductions, conversations, and quiet triumph. A prominent arts magazine editor requested an interview. The gallery owner reported that 3 pieces had already sold. Colleagues offered heartfelt congratulations. Emma finally approached where my father and I stood, viewing a particularly powerful image of chosen family. "You must be Mr. Hammond," she said, extending her hand. "I am Emma Chen." My father took her hand, his awkwardness evident, but his effort genuine. "Please call me Robert," he said. "It is good to meet you, Emma. Lucia was just telling me about your work in sustainable architecture." The conversation that followed was stilted but respectful, my father clearly trying to connect with the woman who had become central to my life. Emma, always perceptive, maintained an openness that allowed him space to try. As the event wound down close, friends gathered for a celebratory dinner at a nearby restaurant. To my surprise, my father accepted the invitation to join us, sitting quietly among my chosen family, observing the easy affection and genuine interest these people showed in each other's lives. Later, as Emma and I collapsed into our hotel bed, emotionally drained but deeply satisfied, she propped herself on one elbow to look at me. "Are you okay with how things went with your dad?" she asked. "I think so," I replied, considering the question carefully. It is strange to see him making an effort now after all these years. Part of me wants to reject it as too little too late, but another part recognizes how difficult it must have been for him to come alone knowing my mother's disapproval. "People can change," Emma said. "Not always, not completely, but sometimes enough to matter." "We will see," I answered, neither committing to reconciliation nor closing the door on possibility. The exhibition became a critical and commercial success. The magazine spread featuring my work and personal story generated new opportunities and a widened audience for my photography. Chosen families across the country reached out to share their stories, many offering to be part of a potential book project. Through it all, Emma remained my anchor, her love and support never wavering. Jasmine and other close friends celebrated each success as if it were their own. My chosen family proved again and again that love could exist without conditions, that belonging could be created, rather than simply inherited. And somewhere in the background, a tentative, fragile connection with my father began to take root. Occasional emails expanded into weekly phone calls. He asked questions about my work, listened to my answers, and shared small details of his own life, often revealing the cracks in what had once seemed a unified parental front. What I did not expect was the message that appeared in my inbox 3 weeks after the exhibition opening, sent from an email address I did not immediately recognize. "Lucia, it is Madison. We need to talk, please." The coffee shop Madison suggested for our meeting was Neutral Territory, a chain cafe in downtown Boston, equidistant from our parents' home and my hotel. I arrived 15 minutes early, selecting a corner table that offered privacy without feeling isolated. The nervous energy that had accompanied me since receiving Madison's message intensified as I waited, wondering what could have prompted this outreach. I spotted her immediately when she entered, her designer handbag and perfectly highlighted hair marking her as someone accustomed to privilege. Yet something about her appearance had changed. The confident posture seemed forced, her usually immaculate makeup applied with a slightly heavier hand, as if concealing something. She hesitated when she saw me, then approached with visible apprehension. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. I was not sure you would. I am not sure why I did, I admitted. But here we are. Madison fidgeted with her wedding ring, twisting it around her finger. Up close, I noticed the slight puffiness around her eyes that makeup could not entirely disguise. She had been crying. I ordered you a vanilla latte, I said, pushing the untouched cup toward her. You still drink those, right? The small gesture of remembering her preference seemed to surprise her. Yes, thank you, she replied, wrapping her manicured fingers around the cup but not drinking. The silence stretched between us, loaded with shared history and separate wounds. Dad told me he went to your exhibition, Madison finally said. He said your work was extraordinary. It was surprising that he came, I acknowledged. He and Mom had a huge fight about it, Madison confided, leaning forward slightly. I have never seen him stand up to her like that before. He said he was done letting her dictate his relationship with you. I absorbed this information, unsure how to respond. My father's newfound backbone was still difficult to reconcile with the passive parent of my childhood. I did not ask to meet just to tell you that, Madison continued when I remained silent. I wanted to apologize. For the wedding. For what I said after. The apology caught me off guard. Madison had rarely, if ever, acknowledged wrongdoing in our shared history. Why? I asked simply. Why exclude me? Why say those hurtful things? Madison's gaze dropped to her untouched coffee. It was not entirely my idea, she admitted. Mom convinced me it would be better if you weren't there. She said you would feel uncomfortable, that you would not fit in with the other guests. And you believed that, I pressed. I wanted to believe it, Madison replied, a flash of honesty lighting her eyes. It was easier than admitting the truth, which is that Mom has always been jealous of you, Madison said quietly. Of your independence, your talent, your ability to walk away from her control. She has spent our entire lives trying to make me into her second chance, her do-over. And I let her because it was easier than fighting for my own identity. The revelation matched my own understanding of our family dynamics, yet hearing it from Madison herself was jarring. At my wedding, she continued, Mom was more concerned with how everything looked, with what people would think, than with whether I was happy. She invited business associates of Dad's I had never met, but argued against my college roommate because her dress sense wasn't sophisticated enough. Madison took a shaky breath before continuing. When I saw that photograph of you and Emma, something clicked for me. You have built a life on your terms. You found love that seems real, not performative. Meanwhile, I am realizing my marriage might have been a mistake. The vulnerability in her confession was unprecedented, the golden child admitting tarnish beneath the shine. What do you mean? I asked, my anger giving way to reluctant curiosity. Jeremy controls everything, Madison said, her voice dropping even lower. Our finances, our social calendar, even what I wear. I thought that was normal because I watched Mom defer to Dad on everything important. But now I see Dad changing, standing up for himself, and you and I wonder what I have gotten myself into. The parallel to our parents' marriage, which I had always viewed from the outside as mother-dominated, revealed a more complex reality. My father's financial control had balanced my mother's emotional manipulation, creating a dysfunctional equilibrium I had never fully understood. I am sorry about the wedding, Madison repeated, and I am especially sorry for what I said afterward, about you never having your special day. It was cruel, and not even true. I was lashing out because seeing you stand your ground made me realize how much of myself I have compromised. The sincerity in her apology was unmistakable, yet years of hurt made me cautious. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means something to hear it. Dad showed me your website, Madison added. Your photography is amazing, Lucia. You see people in this way that makes them look, I do not know how to describe it, important, valuable. Everyone is important and valuable, I said. Some people just need someone to recognize it. Madison nodded slowly. No one has ever really seen me, she said, a hint of realization in her tone. Not Mom, who sees only who she wants me to be. Not Jeremy, who sees a trophy. Maybe not even me. The admission created an unexpected moment of connection between us. For the first time, I recognized that Madison's privilege as the favored child had come with its own form of invisibility. Mom was furious when Dad went to your exhibition, Madison continued. She called it a betrayal, said he was choosing you over family, which is rich considering what they did with the wedding. They are barely speaking now. I never wanted to come between them, I said truthfully. I just wanted to be seen. I know, Madison replied, and I am starting to understand why that matters so much. She reached into her purse withdrawing a business card. I found this in Dad's office. It is for a therapist he has been seeing for the past month. Can you believe it, Dad in therapy? The news shocked me. Our stoic father seeking professional help was as unexpected as his attendance at my exhibition. He told me it was helping him understand how he contributed to the family dysfunction. Madison continued. He suggested I might benefit from talking to someone too. Are you considering it? I asked. Maybe, she said, sliding the card back into her purse. If I can figure out how to pay for it without Jeremy knowing, he thinks therapy is for weak people. I noted the red flag, but chose not to comment directly. Financial control is a form of abuse, Madison, I said instead, keeping my tone gentle. I know, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I just do not know how to fix any of it. I have never supported myself. I do not have skills or experience or anything. The stark contrast between our adult lives hung in the air between us, my hard-won independence versus her gilded cage. You could, I said after a moment. You are smart, Madison. You just never had to develop those skills because everything was handed to you. Unlike you, she acknowledged. I used to be so jealous of how Mom favored me, but now I wonder if she actually did you a favor in a twisted way. You had to become strong. I would have preferred the love without the lesson, I admitted. Madison nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. I think I would trade some of the love I got for the strength you built. We fell silent again, sipping our cooling coffees, the weight of decades shifting between us. What are you going to do? I finally asked. I do not know yet, Madison replied honestly. But seeing you stand up to Mom and Dad made me realize I have choices. I just need to find the courage to make them. For what it is worth, I offered. I think you are stronger than you know. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Coming from you, that actually means something. As we prepared to leave, Madison hesitated. Lucia. Would it be okay if I emailed you sometimes, not to pretend everything is fixed between us, but just to not be alone while I figure things out? The request was modest, appropriate to our fragile reconnection. Yes, I agreed. I would be okay with that. We parted without hugging, the physical distance between us, reflecting the careful boundaries of our interaction. Yet as I watched Madison walk away, I felt something I had not expected: compassion for the sister, who had seemed to have everything but might actually have less than me in the ways that truly mattered. Back in my hotel room, I called Emma to share the surprising developments. Madison apologized, I said, still processing the reality of it, and she seems to be questioning everything about her life. That is huge, Emma responded. How do you feel about it? I considered the question carefully. Cautiously optimistic, I decided. Not about suddenly having the sister relationship I always wanted, but about both of us finally breaking free of the roles we were assigned. Your family is changing, Emma observed. All of you. Except my mother, I pointed out. Maybe, Emma conceded. But systems do not work when key parts change. Your father standing up to her, Madison questioning her choices, you refusing to play the outsider role any longer. Your mother will either have to adapt or become increasingly isolated. The insight stayed with me as I returned to Seattle the following day. Madison's revelation about our mother's jealousy of my independence cast my childhood in a new light. Perhaps what I had interpreted as rejection had partly been fear, a mother watching her daughter become someone she herself had never dared to be. It did not excuse the hurt she had caused, but it offered a perspective that made my mother seem more human, more complex than the simple villain of my childhood narrative. As I settled back into my life with Emma resuming work and building on the momentum of my successful exhibition, I maintained the tentative connections with both my father and Madison. Our communications remained careful, respectful of newly established boundaries, but gradually increasing in frequency and depth. My father shared his therapy insights. Madison sent hesitant emails about her growing dissatisfaction with her marriage and tentative steps toward independence, including a photography class she had enrolled in without telling Jeremy. The family I had been born into was changing, rearranging itself into something unrecognizable from the rigid system of my youth. Whether those changes would lead to healing remained uncertain, but the simple fact of change itself felt like progress. Meanwhile, the family I had chosen with Emma at its center continued to be my foundation, my safe harbor in the still stormy waters of blood relationships. In Emma's love and Jasmine's friendship in the community we had built around us, I found the acceptance and belonging I had sought all my life. No matter what happened with my parents and Madison, I knew I would never again measure my worth by their ability to see it. That lesson, hard won through years of pain and rejection, was perhaps the most valuable gift my difficult family had unwittingly given me. 1 year after the confrontation that had shattered the facade of my family relationships, Emma and I found ourselves planning our own celebration. Having privately committed to each other in Santorini the previous year, we now felt ready for a public acknowledgement of our relationship, a wedding that would bring together the various threads of our lives. My career had flourished in the wake of the Chosen Family exhibition. A prestigious publishing house had offered me a book deal to expand the project, sending me on assignment to document chosen families across continents. My photography was being exhibited in galleries from New York to London. I had been profiled in major publications as an emerging voice in contemporary photography. Through it all, Emma remained my anchor, her own career in sustainable architecture thriving in parallel. We had purchased our first home together, a light-filled craftsman in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood that we were slowly making our own. Our lives had intertwined completely, from our professional collaborations to our shared circle of friends. Planning our wedding celebration brought unexpected challenges, particularly around the guest list. My father, now separated from my mother and living in a small apartment near his office, had become a regular presence in my life through weekly phone calls and occasional visits to Seattle. His efforts to rebuild our relationship were consistent and genuine, his joy in my success unmarred by the conditional approval of my childhood. Madison, too, had begun carving out her independence. After months of therapy, she had separated from Jeremy and moved into her own apartment, supporting herself with a job at a small gallery and exploring her newfound interest in photography. Our relationship had evolved into something cautiously positive, with honest conversations about our shared past and different futures. The question that weighed on both Emma and me was whether to include my mother in our celebration. "She has made no effort to contact you in the past year," Emma pointed out as we reviewed our guest list one evening. "No acknowledgement of your father's changed stance or Madison's separation." "I know," I sighed, staring at the blank space next to my mother's name. "But inviting Dad and Madison while explicitly excluding her feels like perpetuating the very dynamic I have fought against my whole life." Emma considered this, her architect's mind always seeking balanced solutions. "What if we send an invitation with a personal note? Set clear expectations about behavior, while offering an opportunity for closure, whatever form that takes." The suggestion aligned with the growth work I had been doing with my own therapist. "It would be the emotionally mature choice," I admitted. "Even if she declines or responds negatively, I will know I did not continue the cycle of exclusion." We crafted a careful invitation, including a handwritten note explaining that while past wounds had not been forgotten, this celebration was about looking forward. I specified that respect for my relationship with Emma was a non-negotiable condition of attendance. Weeks passed with no response until a brief email arrived requesting a private meeting at her convenience. The formal tone and lack of congratulations spoke volumes, but I agreed to meet during my next trip to Boston to consult on my book project. The family home felt smaller each time I returned its significance in my emotional landscape, diminishing as I built my own secure foundation elsewhere. My mother answered the door looking older than I remembered, her carefully maintained appearance showing subtle signs of strain. "Thank you for coming," she said, leading me into the living room that had been the site of our confrontation a year earlier. The wedding albums that had occupied the coffee table then were nowhere in sight. "Your father has been living separately for 8 months now," she said without preamble, as if I might not be aware. "He tells me he speaks with you regularly." "We talk every Sunday," I confirmed, neither apologetic nor boastful. "And Madison? She calls you too, I understand." "We email mostly," I replied. "Sometimes video chat." My mother nodded slowly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "So I am the only one excluded from your life." The irony of her statement might have made me laugh if it were not so painfully revealing of her perspective. "You excluded me first," I said quietly. "From Madison's wedding, from family celebrations, from your approval." "I was protecting Madison," she insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "From what?" I challenged. "From seeing that her sister could be successful and happy without following the path you laid out." My mother's posture stiffened, her defense mechanisms visibly engaging. Then, surprisingly, she seemed to deflate slightly. Perhaps, she admitted, the word clearly difficult for her to speak. Your independence always frightened me. The acknowledgement, small though it was, represented the first crack in her perfect maternal facade I had ever witnessed. Why? I pressed gently, sensing a crucial moment. She was silent for so long, I thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a vulnerability I had never heard before. I was raised to believe a woman's value came from the men in her life. My father, then my husband, determined my worth. I had no identity outside those relationships. She looked down at her wedding ring, still worn despite the separation. When you showed such independence from such a young age, when you seemed to need so little from me or your father, it felt like rejection, like failure. I did need you, I said, my throat tight with emotion. I needed your approval, your love, your acceptance. I did not know how to give those things freely, she admitted. My own mother never did. The revelation of generational trauma unfolding between us did not excuse the pain she had caused, but it offered context I had never before considered. My mother, like her mother before her, had been shaped by expectations that limited her conception of womanhood and motherhood. When I saw that photograph of you and Emma, she continued, it was not just the relationship that shocked me. It was seeing evidence of a life you had built completely outside my influence or knowledge, a happiness you had found without following any of the rules I thought were essential. Rules that have not brought you happiness, I observed. She flinched slightly but did not deny it. Your father seems more at peace now than in 40 years of marriage, she acknowledged. Madison is struggling financially but talks about purpose and authenticity in ways I do not understand. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of decades between us. I received your wedding invitation, she finally said. I have been trying to decide how to respond. What is holding you back? I asked. Pride, she admitted with surprising candor. Fear of being judged, uncertainty about whether I can genuinely celebrate something so different from what I always wanted for you. Her honesty, however painful, was preferable to the manipulative dynamics of the past. I am not asking you to change your beliefs overnight, I said carefully. Just to respect that my path is mine to choose and that it has led me to genuine happiness. You seem settled, she observed. Content in a way I am not sure I have ever been. The admission cost her visibly decades of carefully constructed superiority, crumbling in the face of my evident well-being. I would like you to be at our wedding, I said, meeting her eyes directly. But only if you can come with respect for my choices and my relationship with Emma. I will not accept anything less, not anymore. I cannot promise to understand everything, she said slowly. But I can promise to try, to listen rather than judge. It was not the wholehearted acceptance I might have once desperately craved, but it was an honest response that acknowledged her limitations, while offering a small opening toward change. That would be a start, I acknowledged, a beginning, not an ending. We parted with no dramatic reconciliation, no tearful embraces or declarations of transformed understanding. Just a tentative agreement to continue communication, to attend the wedding with appropriate boundaries in place, to begin the slow work of building something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. As I left my childhood home, I felt neither the crushing weight of rejection nor the soaring hope of complete healing. Instead, I experienced a quiet peace, a recognition that whatever happened next, my happiness no longer depended on my mother's approval or understanding. The morning of our wedding dawned clear and crisp, Seattle's notoriously fickle weather cooperating for our outdoor celebration. We had chosen a small botanical garden overlooking Puget Sound, its natural beauty requiring minimal decoration. Friends had arrived from across the country and around the world, filling our rented vacation house with laughter and warmth in the days leading up to the ceremony. My father had flown in 3 days early, taking time to get to know Emma better and to help with last-minute preparations. His joy in my happiness was palpable, his gratitude at being included evident in every interaction. Madison had arrived the previous afternoon, nervous but excited, bearing handcrafted ceramic vases she had made in a community art class. My mother had confirmed her attendance, but had not communicated beyond that. As guests began gathering in the garden, I watched from a window of the small preparation cottage, searching for her familiar figure among the assembling crowd. Are you nervous? Jasmine asked, making final adjustments to my simple ivory suit, a camera hanging around her neck to capture candid moments between professional photos. About the ceremony, no, I replied honestly. About seeing my mother a little. Remember who you are now, Jasmine said, echoing the advice she had given before my confrontation a year earlier. Not who she made you believe you were. Emma and I had decided to get ready together, rejecting the tradition of separation before the ceremony. She emerged from the bathroom in her cream silk dress, her dark hair swept up elegantly, and my breath caught at the sight of her. You look stunning, I said, crossing the room to take her hands. So do you, she replied, her eyes bright with emotion. Are you ready? I have been ready since Santorini. I smiled. Everything since has just been details. We walked hand in hand toward the garden, where our officiant, a close friend who had been part of my chosen family photography project, waited beneath an arch of native flowers. Guests turned to watch our approach, faces alight with genuine happiness for our union. My father stood from his seat in the front row, tears glistening in his eyes. Madison sat beside him, her smile tentative but real. And in the last row, partially obscured by a decorative pillar, sat my mother dressed conservatively but present. The ceremony unfolded with the authenticity that had become the hallmark of our relationship. We spoke vows we had written ourselves, exchanged rings that echoed the bands from our private Santorini commitment, and kissed to the applause of people who truly celebrated our love. The reception that followed was joyful and relaxed, with excellent food, heartfelt toasts, and a playlist that kept the dance floor filled. My father walked me through a traditional father-daughter dance, his whispered, "I am so proud of you," bringing tears to my eyes. Madison gave a surprisingly touching toast about finding the courage to build authentic happiness. My mother remained largely on the periphery, observing more than participating, but making an effort to congratulate us formally and to speak briefly with Emma. It was neither the warm maternal embrace once longed for, nor the bitter rejection once feared. It was simply what she could offer, accepted for what it was, rather than what it was not. As the evening progressed, I found myself standing alone for a moment near the garden's edge, watching the celebration continue under twinkling lights. Emma danced with her parents, who had welcomed me unreservedly into their family from the beginning. Jasmine laughed with colleagues from my newspaper. Madison chatted animatedly with friends from our chosen family circle. My father approached, offering a glass of champagne. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, echoing a phrase from my childhood. "I was just thinking about family," I replied, accepting the glass. "About how it can be both what we are given and what we create." He nodded, following my gaze across the gathered guests. "You have built something beautiful," he said. "Not just today, but in your life. I wish I had seen it sooner." "I am glad you see it now," I said simply. He hesitated, then added, "Your mother is trying in her way. This is very difficult for her, but she is here." "I know," I acknowledged. "That matters. Not enough to erase the past, but enough to allow for possibility." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the celebration unfold. After a moment, he squeezed my shoulder gently and moved away, joining a conversation with Emma's father about sustainable building practices. Later, as Emma and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, I noticed my mother standing alone near the exit. On impulse, I approached her. "Thank you for coming," I said sincerely. She nodded, her composure firmly in place, but her eyes revealing complex emotions. "It was a beautiful ceremony," she said formally. "Emma seems very committed to you." Coming from my mother, this qualified acknowledgement represented significant effort. "She is," I confirmed, "as I am to her." "I hope you will be happy," she said, the words clearly difficult for her to speak. "Truly, I am happy," I replied, neither seeking her blessing nor rejecting the tentative olive branch. "I have been for some time now." No dramatic embrace followed, no tearful reconciliation, or promises of transformed relationship. Just a nod of acknowledgement, a small step on a long and uncertain path. Whether that path would lead to genuine healing or simply peaceful distance remained to be seen, but the decision was no longer mine alone to make. Emma joined me, slipping her hand into mine. "Ready to go?" she asked, sensing the weight of the moment. "Yes," I smiled, turning toward my wife and the future we had chosen together. As we left the garden, surrounded by the joyful farewells of our chosen family, I carried with me the most valuable lesson of my journey, that true wealth lies not in elaborate celebrations or family approval, but in authentic connection with those who see and value us exactly as we are. The family I had been born into had given me challenges that forced me to develop strength, resilience, and independence. The family I had chosen had given me love, acceptance, and belonging. Together, these experiences had shaped me into a woman capable of both giving and receiving love without conditions. In my photography studio, where I now mentor young photographers from difficult family backgrounds, I share this wisdom through art rather than words. I teach them to see the beauty in connection, to recognize the dignity in every human story, to use their cameras as tools of empowerment rather than exploitation. Life has come full circle, the excluded child now creating spaces of inclusion for others. The pain of my past transformed into purpose, the wounds healed enough to become wisdom I can share. This is the true value of the journey I have traveled, worth infinitely more than any $50,000 wedding I might have been excluded from. The ability to create my own celebration on my own terms with those who truly love me represents a wealth my family never understood. Have you ever felt excluded from something important, only to realize later that you created something even more meaningful on your own terms? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of finding strength through difficult family dynamics. And remember, the family that truly matters is the one that sees and celebrates the authentic you, whether connected by blood or by choice. Thank you for listening, and may your own journey lead you to the belonging we all deserve.